Welcome back to The Explainer. Now, inaugurals are among the most formal occasions in our official life. In 1898, President Aguinaldo wore white tie to the inaugural of the Malolos Congress. But in 1899, he was slightly less formal, wearing black tie and walking to his own inauguration. Still, the height of solemnity was observed. Now, the most formal inaugural was Laurel's in 1943 when he wore white tie. Now, if you can notice, he's wearing the Order of the Rising Sun from the Emperor of Japan, and 3 presidents, Quezon, Laurel, and Garcia, wore medals to their inaugurals. In general, however, following protocol abroad, this is what is worn to an inaugural. Now, it's called either a morning coat or a cutaway. It's basically swallow-tailed and with striped trousers and a vest. Now, Japanese prime ministers and their cabinets still wear cutaways when inducted into office. From 1935 to 1953, the morning coat was what was worn at inaugurals, except of course Rojas's because of the post-war devastation. President Quirino, a very formal person, revived the use of the morning coat in 1949. And take a look at this picture. Note, by the way, he's holding his hand over his chest, the civilian way of saluting. Now, we'll get back to the question of how presidents salute a little later. But going back to formal clothes, President Magsaysay in 1953 was the first president to adopt the formal Barong Tagalog. Formal because he retained the use of striped trousers. Now, as you can see, he, on the other hand, kept the neck open while Vice President-elect Garcia opted to keep his top buttons, and so you have 2 choices. Now, the last gasp of the morning coat was in 1957 when President Garcia revived the cutaway again. And here's Vice President Macapagal looking uncomfortable in his. But the era of the morning coat was passing. Even in the USA, John F. Kennedy in 1961 became the last U.S. president to wear a cutaway at his inaugural. President Macapagal in the same year restored the use of the formal barong, also with striped trousers, a tradition retained ever since. Now, here's President Marcos in 1981. Now, so you can get a better look at the formal striped trousers for inaugurals. And here he is saluting. Now, he abandoned the civilian salute and insisted on the full military salute. Now, today, some officers are proposing a return to the pre-martial law presidential salute of hand over heart to re-emphasize civilian control over the military. The last dignitary to wear a morning coat to an inaugural was U.S. Vice President George Bush, also in 1981 to the Marcos inaugural. Now, as for women, whether Vice President-elects like Gloria Macapagal Arroyo in 1998 or First Ladies since 1935, the terno has been de rigueur at inaugurals. Now, oath-takings under emergency situations have, of course, been very low-key affairs, where business suits are more appropriate, such as Garcia's taking his oath in 1957 upon the death of President Magsaysay in March, although by December he would then revive the morning coat for his formal inaugural, having been elected into office. Now, the exception to ladies in ternos at inaugurals was, of course, Mrs. Aquino in her 1986 inaugural and at Ramos's in 1992. And Mrs. Arroyo's in her emergency oath-taking in 2001. Now, even President Marcos's emergency inaugural in 1986 dispensed with the striped pants, but Mrs. Marcos still managed to wear a terno, though, of course, Ilocos Norte Governor Bongbong Marcos had to make do with military fatigues. And so perhaps it's best to view our inaugurals as events in which each administration can and does make its mark, adjusting the ceremony to communicate the messages it wants as it begins its stewardship of the executive department. In the end, aside from the date, time, and text of the oath, everything in an inaugural is up to the new president to decide. However, the rituals exist so that these decisions don't have to be made, and so everyone can just sort of smoothly go into place. And so we can learn from the traditions each one or each new president adopts and discards, because it tells us how they view the office they've been elected to fill. So thanks for joining us through this gallop down 75 years of inaugural history. Let's see what new traditions are put in place come June 30th. I'm Manolo, Quezon, the Explainer.